Today we're just 5 days from a budget that will be crucial for this country's future. And at a time when our country needs leadership and certainty, we now have a government that is paralysed by uncertainty and its complicity in driving this economy over a cliff. We have a government in power but without authority. It is a government now characterised by chaos and confusion. I have to say that the chaotic scenes of government buildings over the last few days, as the government scrambles around and waits for ideas and solutions, is sending out a very weak message about their capacity to grapple with the challenges facing them and our country. For months now, the Taoiseach and the Minister for Finance have promised tough and resolute action. They have promised that the public pay bill would be cut by 1.3 billion without impacting on public services. That strategy is now clearly in tatters. And while I fully respect the right of trade unions to represent their members, it is not appropriate for the government to lock themselves into this clandestine process so near to the budget. Trade unions have every right to negotiate on behalf of their members, but it has to be perfectly clear that it is government of the day, the cabinet of the day, that makes the decisions. Nor is it acceptable for any of the participants in this process to tell those of us who have electoral mandates to vote out and to stay silent. Respect, in my book, works both ways. The only question that government will answer on Wednesday is which sectors of our society are going to be forced to pay for the mistakes and the incompetence of this government. Who will have the further sacrifices demanded of them so that more and more taxpayers' money can be pumped into banks to bail them out? The draconian measures in this budget should not have been necessary. We should not have to have this kind of budget. They could have and should have been avoided. Fianna Fáil and Taoiseach Brian Cowan in particular failed to anticipate the crisis and failed to plan accordingly. They ignored all the warnings, all the repeated warnings from the Fine Gael party and from independent experts that the economy was overheating and that the government was too reliant on an unsustainable housing market. They've made things worse, clearly worse, by failing to provide any plan to get people back to work. They're offering the Irish people no hope for the future, just endless, painful budgets and further cuts in services. And as a result, people have no confidence to spend or to invest, as is evidenced by the huge increase in personal savings. I've been around the country with our economic spokes team in the last number of weeks, and it's perfectly obvious that pension funds and deposit funds are bursting with money that has been put in there on deposit by people, but there is no confidence to actually spend because the government have failed to spell out a clear plan and a clear strategy with an end in sight. And when people do not see any end in sight, they refuse naturally to have the confidence to spend. This party has a fundamentally different approach to the economic and budgetary crisis. Our strategy has the principle of fairness right at its core, from bottom to top. That's why I've said that change has to start at the top, and demonstrably at the top. If we are to demand changes and sacrifices from others, we have to demonstrate that we are prepared to lead by example. That's why I said that Dáil Éireann should be downsized. That's why I said I'd ask the people for their authorisation to abolish Shannon Éireann by referendum. And while these changes will mean some savings in money, their real value will be seen as a catalyst for real reform throughout the entire government system. We don't see this budget on next Wednesday as the standalone event. We believe that it should be an element of an economic recovery plan. We understand that the only sustainable way to turn around Ireland is to get our people back to work and shorten those dole queues. That's why we have already published a comprehensive set of policies to support the protection and the creation of jobs, including a national recovery bank to extend credit and facilities to small businesses, our new economic recovery authority plan, which will create 105,000 jobs in areas that we really need them, a reduction on employers' PRSI, and most recently, Deputy Varadkar's job creation proposals for young people aimed specifically at those under 25. Along with these proposals and the principles that we're publishing today, these plans offer real hope for the future. Hope that with decisive leadership and certainty, we can solve our economic crisis by getting people off welfare and back to work. In the next government, the Gael government, I intend that the Department of the Taoiseach will be the focus of the delivery of government plans and government policy. I see that department as being the enforcer of what government policy and government plans actually are. To do that, it will be a smaller and a leaner department that does not duplicate the work of other departments or other agencies. And to do that, I will revamp the Taoiseach's department to focus it on the implementation and the delivery of our programmes. I'm joined here today by my Deputy Leader and Spokesman on Finance, Richard Bruton, and by our Deputy Spokesman on Finance, Kieran O'Donnell. And both Richard and Kieran will set out for you the main details of the structure of what we're proposing here to shift our economy to a point where we can sort out our public finances and put people back to work.